And we're talking to Rory Riley Topping, who's currently the founder of Riley Topping Consulting and is a policy expert. And I guess I'll throw you one more curveball here at the end, coming out of this conversation in the policy area. As you think about this, Rory, should Congress change the way in which, and the president, to change the way in which the VA secretary gets appointed? Maybe it should be more like a Fed reserve chair, or maybe the appointment ought to be for a given set of years, 6 years, 10 years, so that you get away from all of this. Because at some point, I know I can take you down and force you to resign if I can distract you enough, and you have to wonder if that goes on a little bit. So can you talk to us about the policy aspect of should we change the way we appoint the VA secretary, and if that would be better for serving veterans?
Well, I think that's certainly a conversation that is worth having because, again, as we were just discussing, there's nothing that we have figured out so far that makes sense and has a formula for this is what makes a good VA secretary. So I think, again, it's certainly a conversation that is worth having. And if we did it that way, perhaps then we wouldn't have candidates who are viewed as very partisan. I know when you look at both McDonald and Secretary Shulkin, they were viewed as nonpartisan appointees, but got caught up in partisan politics nonetheless. I think in part, some of that speaks to the general atmosphere in DC right now, and that's a bigger conversation for another time. But people have always talked about veterans issues as being an area where we can come together as a welcome reprieve from the extreme partisanship that we tend to see in other areas of policy. And unfortunately, in the past few years, veterans issues have gotten away from that. They're no longer really an area where both sides can come together. They just have fallen victim to the polarization that we see on so many other issues. So perhaps doing something like a 6-year appointment, you just referenced a Federal Reserve chairman, something like that is something that we can have more conversations about. I'm always a big fan of legislative commissions. I know not everybody is, but just having somebody study this and what is the appointment process and what are other ways that we could do this that perhaps, like you said, leads to less distractions and more focus on the issues. I would love to see Congress look into that and talk about that. But unfortunately, I think we're not there yet because there are so many other issues that have been unaddressed. Obviously, the back and forth between healthcare, community care, issues relating to women veterans. There are so many greater issues that are taking up our elected representatives' attention. I don't know that they're really going to be focused on this, although I would love to see it. I think it would be a hard sell for Congress right now because they are focused on so many other things.
Well, they might be able to solve some of those other things by getting this out of the way. But
I'm with you.
We want to thank Rory Riley Topping for spending some time today with Veterans Radio. Thanks for taking time to talk to us.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed our conversation today.
Listen to this full episode and more on the Apple Podcasts app, Blog Talk Radio, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio.